Welcome. If you are a fellow marketer who has been tasked with using Jira, then you are in the right place. I have been using Jira for nearly 15 years now due to the fact that I oftentimes work with software engineers. And if you do too, you will most likely encounter Jira. So here I'm going to go over how, as a marketer, you can use Jira for your own processes. I'll go over some of the basic terms, the basic concepts, and even show you the optimal content engine workflow within Jira. And I'm also going to show you a couple cool add-on tools that you can use to make your life easier. Before I dive in to show you how to use Jira, I'll go into why perhaps you might want to. So first of all, it can be very beneficial to be in the same tool as your engineers and as your product team, just from a visibility standpoint, especially if you're a product marketer. Also, if you adopt a sprint style type planning, you will benefit from using Jira. You know, Agile isn't just for engineers, and Jira is among the best tools to use if you're adopting an Agile approach to work. And then lastly, your company might just want all teams to use the same tool, whether to save money or just from a productivity standpoint. So you might just have to use Jira. Whatever the reason, they're all valid. And no matter why you're using Jira, you will, out of this video, learn a bunch of stuff. So firstly, you'll learn workflows. This includes some of the concepts you need to know for Jira workflows. I'm going to go over how we at Visor use forms to get content requests into our content engine. And I'm just going to go over some Jira best practices as well. And then I'm also going to cover tools to use with Jira. Obviously Slack, or if you're using Teams, I'm going to go over how specifically to do that. And then also, I'm going to go over Visor. Yes, I work at Visor. I also use Visor specifically when working with our contractors who aren't in our Jira instance. I'll go over how exactly to do that as well. So let's get started. So let's actually dive in and look at some of the main concepts that you need to know to use Jira. First of all, the backbone of Jira is a Kanban board. Yes, there are other visualizations as well, but typically most teams are using a Kanban when in Jira. And so if you're not familiar with what a Kanban is, it's a board view. Here is our Visor content engine as a Jira Kanban board. And the purpose of this Kanban board, really the whole game, if you will, of this Kanban board is to try to get your Jira issues moving from the left all the way to the right. So on the left, we have the column requested, and then all the way to the right, we have published. And so each column is a step along the process that our content has to go through in order to hit that published, that glorious, glorious published column. And that is essentially how Jira functions. So in order to use this Kanban board, you also have to have Jira issues within the board for them to move along. And if you don't know what Jira issues are, no worries. I'm about to cover that. Whenever you create something that needs to get done in Jira, it's an issue. And Jira actually follows an hierarchical structure. So you can have an epic, and an epic is typically, let's say you're launching a whole new website. And so there's going to be so many other child issues underneath that epic. So that's the parent issue. Issues oftentimes are underneath epics, and then it goes into tasks and subtasks. But also every company I've ever worked at structures their hierarchy in Jira differently. There's a lot of customization that can be had in Jira. And so it's not going to be the same necessarily at every company, but just know that Jira issues are what needs to get done. And there's an hierarchy to them. And so also you'll likely need different issue types for different content, bringing it back to marketing. So you can have an issue type that is for a blog post. and has certain required fields for that blog to be completed or filled out, rather. Similar with an email campaign. So I'm going to go into what this actually looks like in more detail, but I'm just covering a lot of these concepts. But this is an issue type that we have at Visor when we're filling out a issue request or we're creating an issue. You'll see that this is a blog, there's an assignee, there's certain things. And again, I'm going to dive into this in our actual Jira instance in a moment, but we have distinct fields for different issue types, and we even have checklists as well. So again, highly customizable, but you can also keep it pretty simple. Like for us, we're really only filling out 4 or 5 fields. The assignee, the start date gets automatically, I believe, filled. The due date needs to get filled in. The category, the channel, the description. You don't have to make it so robust. Make it usable. But yeah, you might want different fields for a blog post issue than you would for, let's say, a YouTube video. So let's go into fields now. So Jira issues have fields. And like I said, you'll often need things like assignee, due date, and a few others, depending on your issue type. And it's a best practice to always fill out an issue's required fields. I know for our content engine, the way it's set up, if an assignee is not set or a due date isn't set, it might not show up in the actual Kanban board. So the way the Kanban board is actually structured, things become visible once they're filled out. So just know it irks whoever is running your project, managing your content or your marketing efforts. It is really annoying to that person typically if you're not filling things out properly. And by things, I mean fields. So let's go into also talking about the stages that your issues will walk through in a workflow. So I kind of went over how the Kanban board is the backbone of Jira. And so you can move your Jira issues along like we do with our content engine. And so it's a best practice to have one person who is accountable for owning the board. For us, it's our senior content marketing manager, Halden. If too many people are, quote unquote, in charge of the board, then they might feel that the other person's taking care of it. So really just having one person who's accountable for, in this case, our content efforts, in terms of managing them, have that person run the board. It will make your life a lot more sane. So in terms of running the board, that means making sure that tickets, that issues move along. And so that might involve having to ping someone in a Jira issue and say, hey, is this ready yet? Or having a weekly stand-up where you go over things that have been sitting for too long. Whatever the process is that works for that person, having them be aware of what issues, Jira issues are in what stage is really helpful. And ultimately, in terms of like marketing, we're really hoping to get things published, get through all these stages. And I'm going to walk through what our content engine looks like. I believe it's the optimal content engine for marketers in Jira. But, how do you get things that are in requested to publish as quickly as possible? And having someone own this board, having people fill out their Jira issues properly by filling out the fields necessary. These are all things that are going to help make you more agile as a team, for a lack of a better word, be able to work faster, get things out more quickly. And that's the name of the game, right? So let's actually look at how Visor uses Jira, how our marketing team uses Jira. So I'm going to pull up Jira and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. Well, let's take a gander at Visor Content Engine in Jira and how I am going to create a Jira issue that will live in this Kanban board. Now, there's really 2 ways that we at Visor create a Jira issue for our content engine. The first way, which is what I'm about to show you, is me or whoever in Jira actually creating the issue right there in Jira. The second way, which I'll go over in the next section, is using a form which anyone in our organization who has a Jira license can fill out, and it will also create a Jira issue. So I'm going to show you how to do it first right in Jira. So first things first, I am going to name the ticket, the Jira issue. There's a lot of different names: Jira issue, Jira ticket. There's lots of synonyms to describe the same thing. But we are actually going to be launching an Asana integration fairly soon. Might even be out by the time you're watching this. So I am going to say Asana integration YouTube video. We don't have a super strict structure when it comes to naming these tickets. We just aim for clarity. And as you'll see, there's also a description and other fields that make it super obvious what we are aiming for. So now that I hit create, it has been created, VCE, Visor Content Engine 225. That's the number of the ticket of the issue. And so I double clicked, I am here, and I am able to describe what it is that we want. I am actually not going to do that right now because I'm holding a microphone with one hand. But typically I would write something like, creating an SEO optimized video, going after the following keywords that will illustrate how to use Visor's Asana integration, something along those lines. So I try to be super clear, even if, as in this instance, the assignee of this issue is going to be me, because as I mentioned earlier, our senior content marketing manager is going to be reviewing all these issues. It's her job to kind of move things along in the board. And also, as you will also see, I am going to be making a subtask through a Jira automation that will go to a designer. So I will, again, I'm not filling out the description right now, but pretend that I did. And then I'm going to category. So this is really where, like I said earlier, you can customize Jira to really work for you. Our senior content marketing manager, Halden, said this about how we structured these templates of our issues. It's kind of like doctors who have signs next to their hand washing stations saying specifically how to wash their hands. It's reduced the likelihood of infection when doing surgery. Now, luckily for us marketers, we're not doing surgery, but similar concept of having these reminders, having these fields that we know we need to fill out, make it super clear, and we're not forgetting critical information that other people are going to need to know who we're collaborating with. And some of that critical information is the category. Things that are just kind of basic, but you might forget. Is it a blog post? Is it a social media post? Is it a case study? Is it a company announcement? Is it a knowledge base article? Is it a newsletter? In this case, it's social media because it's a YouTube video, and that's how we classify YouTube. But, if it was blog, I would do this. But I'm not. I'm doing social media, and then I'm choosing the specific channel that it's going on. So it's going on YouTube. Nice. Now that's filled out. I am assigning it to myself because I am the person who is going to be making this video. And the start date, I suppose, no day like the present. I will say that it starts today, July 26th, and the due date is August 7th, a few days before we're actually launching this integration. So that's been filled out. Now, my description, my category, my channel, my assignee, my start and due date, these are all things that just because I know how our Kanban board is run, if I don't have these things filled out, this ticket, number one, might not even show up on the Kanban board, and number two, isn't really useful to other people. However, I'm not fully done yet because I do need additional assets. So I have this field here, need additional assets. I am requesting that. And in so doing, we have an automation in our workflow here where a subtask, as I mentioned before, issues our hierarchical. So a subtask will live under this one, And we are going to make sure our designer gets that request. I'll go into what that looks like in a future section of this video, but in the meantime, I'm sticking to me just filling this out. Because we oftentimes have to request an image for our content, we also have another description where it says additional style or additional describe requested assets. And so I would specifically, unlike the description above where I'm describing what I'm doing broadly, here I'd be like, I need an image that are for YouTube at this dimensions that say this. And also because a lot of our YouTube images have a photo of whoever is doing the video, in this case, me, kind of doing a fun little pose. I would even upload the image straight to the ticket so that the designer has it. I don't have that ready right now, so I'm going to refrain from that, but let's just pretend I did that. And then I am going to hit save, and voila, this is ready to be moved over to requested, which our senior content marketing manager, therefore, will be able to see it, be aware of it. It's on her radar. If not this very second, it soon will be. And that is how we create a Jira issue. I'm going to jump forward and show you another way you can create a Jira issue using forms. So let's get to that. Just went over how to create a Jira issue in Jira that would live in our Visor content engine. Another way that you can also have a Jira issue show up in that same exact engine is filling out this form. So this form gets used by other team members who also use Jira. You do need to be in Jira to fill out this form. And what it allows us to do as a marketing team, if let's say the product team or the engineering team is like, hey, we're going to need a new knowledge base article about this new feature because there's some nuances that the users need to know about, or we need an update to knowledge base articles, or whatever it is that some stakeholder or person who's about to ship a feature knows that our users have to be aware of, they'll fill this out. And so this form essentially fills out or prompts the user to fill out all the fields that we know that we need in our content engine. So priority, the due date, literally the issues don't even show up on our Kanban board if there's no due date, the topic, aka the title of the card, the request specifics, you can even upload things. Again, the channels, whether you need additional assets or not, the assignee. So a lot of those same fields that I just used, or rather just filled out in Jira itself, we have a prompt here. And here's a hack, because inevitably, like most things, you roll out a new process. Sometimes people don't always remember. So here's a little hack that we do for when folks come in and know that they need to request something of the marketing team. Our trusted, tried and true senior content marketing manager, Halden, had the very wise thought to pin something in Slack. We all live and breathe in Slack, and to pin this post in team marketing. Per request, here's a pinnable link to the content request forms. And so therefore, if someone comes into team marketing, which is the name of our Slack channel, and says, hey, we're going to need something for this upcoming release on the blog or wherever, that's not really helpful for us, because then the onus is on one of us on the marketing team to make the Jira issue. So instead, we can just point them and say, hey, the content form that you need to fill out for that request is actually pinned to this channel. And so it kind of is a polite way of getting that person to abide by our process and avoid this kind of like communication drip that oftentimes happens on platforms like Slack. So I highly recommend, once you make these forms, pinning them to channels where people are going to come into and asking for these ad hoc kind of requests. So I went over how Visor uses Jira, and I also want to go over how Visor uses Visor with Jira. Now, Visor, in my opinion, makes using Jira very easy because I will go into all that in more detail, but it makes everything just in a easy to use spreadsheet format. It has other visualizations as well. And this is really critical for our workflow. Our designers are contractors. We have also a freelance writer who's a contractor, and we don't have a Jira license for them. And so we are able to communicate our design requests, our blog post writing requests of them by using Visor, because Visor syncs with Jira. So real quick, Visor is great for marketers if you work with contractors who are not in Jira, but you are working in Jira. If you also prefer updating your work in a spreadsheet, it's kind of like the Switzerland of business. Everyone knows how to use a spreadsheet. And also, if you have to create custom views for different team members or stakeholders, Visor is really amazing for that, especially if those teams and stakeholders are not in Jira. So I will go over Visor real quickly, and then I'll show you the kind of add-on that we do to the workflow for our Jira content engine workflow. And so firstly, Visor offers a bi-directional integration with Jira, which essentially means that you can import your live Jira data, and you can even make updates in Visor in our spreadsheet and then push them back out to Jira. And so our spreadsheet is really designed to work with the hierarchical nature of Jira issues. Like I have covered a couple times now in the video, Jira issues have an hierarchy, and therefore our spreadsheet is going to show you how your tickets actually are represented in Jira. We also have other visualizations as well. I'll get to that in a moment. But let's see Visor and Jira in action, specifically with the use case of working with contractors who you don't have a Jira license for, but you need to get requests to them. So let me show you how we do that. As I mentioned, Visor makes it really easy to import your Jira data into a spreadsheet that reflects reality, that reflects the hierarchical nature of your Jira issues. It even is pulling in people's avatars from Jira, the drop-down field choices. It's a very true representation of what's happening in Jira. And this is our Visor content engine. I showed you what it looked like in Jira itself. This is what it looks like in Visor as a spreadsheet. We also have a board view, so we are able to color code it and really have it represent the exact Kanban board we have in Jira. Now, why would you do that, you might ask? Well, because we have a couple folks, contractors, who do not use Jira. We don't have Jira licenses for them because they're, working a few hours a week for us, but they're still critical as part of our process. And so what we're able to do is have filters. So Halden, who is our senior content marketing manager, is in charge of creating not only our Jira Kanban board, but also importing that data into Visor. And then we're able to add filters. So in this case, the filter is freelancer. And if the answer is yes to any of those following freelancers, it shows up in this freelancer view. And the cool thing is we're able to share this view with our freelancers who aren't in Jira. So that's really helpful. So we have this freelancer view, and then we also have the design view. So when we have design requests for blog posts, for YouTube videos, whatever we need, we are able to have a ticket in Visor that represents what's going on in Jira, and we can share that with external collaborators, external stakeholders who might not be in our Jira instance. So this is a really great way to work with contractors. And also, it's a fabulous way if you're just more comfortable working in a spreadsheet format. Again, because we have that bi-directional two-way syncing, you can update your Jira tickets right here in a spreadsheet and push it to Jira. So if you find that easier, it's also a great productivity hack. And Visor is also totally free to get started with. You don't even have to put a credit card in. And so if you're finding Jira challenging, either just getting started with or working with other folks who aren't in Jira, this is a fabulous, fabulous add-on that will make your life a lot easier. So that's it. That's how we here at Visor use Jira for our content engine. And if you want more training, you're in luck. Atlassian this year, 2024, made all of their online trainings free. They used to actually charge for them. So you can figure out how to make that Kanban board, how to set up those templates for your Jira issues, create those automations, and then you will be rocking and rolling. And if you need even more guidance, we do have some blog posts on our blog that cover how to use Jira. So feel free to check those out as well. Have an awesome time in Jira and elsewhere.